Good afternoon. My name is Matt Pfeiffer, and this is Conversations on Retail. It is a beautiful day. I think it's a short week for a lot of us, and I'm not sure exactly how many of the many folks that have registered will be joining us live, but we're so excited this afternoon to kick off a brand new series with our friend Shawn Harris, focusing on reinventing retail. And Shawn's very first guest is Luis Vera, Chairman and CEO of Zippity. We're looking forward to kicking off that conversation. But before we do, just a couple of housekeeping issues. First and foremost, just a reminder to the folks joining live that this is intended to be a conversation and not a presentation. So if you've got questions along the way, we hope that you'll click on the Q&A button in Zoom and that you can submit your questions, your comments, any sort of insight that you have in writing. And Shawn and I will sort of moderate those as we go. Yeah. Lastly, just a reminder, just a disclaimer of sorts, that the opinions and recommendations that are expressed by Shawn and all of his guests are theirs and not necessarily those of Conversations on Retail. So just make sure that you are weighing all those recommendations against the suitability of for your own circumstances. So we're so glad you're here. Shawn, I'm going to turn it over to you. Thank you so much.
Awesome, Matt. Thank you so much as well. And I'm excited about kicking off Reinventing Retail here with a good friend, Luis Vera. I'm good.
Nice to be here.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you. And I know you're probably still dealing with some jet lag here after an excursion to Japan. And again, thank you for being able to grab this time with us here today.
I'm really happy to be.
Before we jump deep into it, I always like to just start with the man, the individual. Tell me kind of what got us here today, what got you to where you were, a little bit of personal background, kind of what sparked your interest in that intersection of AI and retail, robotics and retail, and yeah. And I know again you've done a lot, so I'd love to hear kind of that story a little bit.
Great. So I grew up here in the Bay Area where I'm based today. And when I was about 14, my dad, who was Chilean from Chile, South America, came home one day and said, "Hey, kids, great news. We're going back home." And for me, it was like, what are you talking about? This is home. And so anyway, they took us kicking and screaming down to Chile and there. So my plan was to do high school, which is about the age I was. So I got there, I was ninth grade. And then I met my later to be wife. So kind of stuck around, studied engineering. But before I left, it was all the Steve Jobs, Bill Gates kind of computer thing that really had me like hooked. So I was hooked on the whole idea of entrepreneurship. And when I was down there studying engineering, I said, "Hey, I'm going to start a company." So started working. I did one company that didn't work out, then the real company I started was in 92, where we started putting track cameras in big box supermarkets. What today is Walmart down there. It was, and Cencosud. And these track cameras would move throughout we had these track cameras everywhere. So it was today we're working on robots. It was like a 90s version of robots then. And originally these things were thought out to be for security purposes, but then they were very expensive to install, like $250,000 per store. Yeah, which is a hard sell, but we could sell it just on the security, kind of changing security guards for technology kind of thing. And so that kind of justified the initial investment. But in order to keep these things going and maintaining them, we needed to develop other applications. So what we started doing was using these images, which were, by the way, were analog. So we had to digitize them but mostly analog. And we started taking those images to control procedures, things that these chains needed to do to kind of keep operational. So it was a way to kind of audit processes internally. So that originally started with a whole bunch of people in the back, like just manually running these cameras. originally the customer would do that, and then we realized that we could provide the service. And then we started with all this AI stuff starting just just starting to emerge, started to figure out that we could actually do a lot of those things automatically.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we got into this. And by 2000, so I did that for like 13 years.
Yeah.
We got big rollouts with those stuff, but they were really expensive, hard to maintain, and very expensive to maintain too. Yeah. So
wait. I want to give you, before we keep going, I want to go back to your dad dragging you out of the Bay Area to Chile.
Yeah.
Like, what was that like? Was it? I think you just said you were in high school.
Yeah, I was in ninth grade.
Ninth grade. How was that? Was that jarring, or was it just like, hey, I'm rolling with it. Dad said we're going. Like, what was that?
Yeah, exactly. At 14, you really don't have a choice. Right?
Yeah.
Yep. So the best you can do is think, okay, when I graduate from high school, I'm going back. My plan was to go back to the U.S. and go to university in the U.S. But eventually ended up doing that. But yeah.
Did you meet a bunch of people
yeah, so I went to international school, so that was too much of a shift. I could speak Spanish because my parents always spoke to us in Spanish.
Yeah,
but could not read or write, so that was a challenge too. So
with people in your if you will, your friend circle at the international school, were they into engineering, computers, and everything?
Some of them were, but not that much. It was like in Chile in that time, it was like it was looked down upon being an entrepreneur. So when I was in university, people would come up to me because I was wearing a suit and tie, right? So because that's the only way they would respect you. If you had to have your suit and tie when you were like 20 something. Yeah. And they go, what the hell are you doing? And I'm an entrepreneur. And they were like, why would you want to be an entrepreneur? And there was no such thing as venture capital, any of that. So it was basically bootstrapping, very, very difficult.
So it's not like...
It seemed like a good idea, but then it got really hard.
It seems like you're saying you're motivated by, what you had heard or seen from like Gates and what Steve Jobs was doing.
All that, following those stories and that was like fascinating to me. And it was like, that's what I want to do. I was always caught by the idea that the best way to predict the future is to invent it.
Yeah. I love those.
So that's kind of like what kind of makes me tick. And I think like for me, it's like everybody's got God-given talents and some of the things you learn and some of the things you kind of have them internally. And I think at heart, I'm kind of like an inventor sort of thing.
Yeah. I love it. It's like your reflection on or looking at jobs and Gates is saying, I know it's possible. I hear a lot of, over the years, people talk about the Zuckerberg effect that's happened, again, on millennials where it's like, if he can do it, like by just building an app, anyone can do it. And it's inspired, I think also there a great deal of people, a great deal of interest in entrepreneurship, which I think is.
Yeah. And then a group, by 1998, a group called Endeavor came down, and they had the vision of it's a U.S. not-for-profit. Yeah. So the founders came down to Chile and said, okay, we're going to start this pilot program in Chile, and we're gonna teach the rest of the world about entrepreneurship and how it's done. Sure. So they selected a few entrepreneurs and started helping them and connecting them with really important people. And that I think was a big turning point in my career in terms of recognizing that how you do this, how you raise the venture capital,
right?
How you learn to focus, a whole bunch of things today that are kind of like when you go talk to a VC, it's like they're fundamental, which were not clear were not very common down there at the time. So
is Endeavor's that's still an organization, right?
Yeah. Today they're like all over the world. They're like 50 different countries. It's amazing what they've done actually, and it's
spreading entrepreneurship.
And that's the best way. It's kind of like, they say if you want to help a fishing village, give them money, you teach them how to fish, kind of thing. Yeah. That's kind of the idea. So it's been very, very valuable. Yeah.
So you're in school, you get exposed to Endeavor. What were again like some of the skills, the things that you were kind of double downing on learning while in school that were helpful in kind of putting you in the right position for success?
Yeah. So my first, I was still in classes when I started my first company. It actually started with metal detectors, right?
Okay.
And because I'd grown up looking for coins in the beach with metal detectors, so down there nobody had ever heard of that.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, I'm going to build one of those, and I'm then going to do a toy company. That was the original idea. And
metal detector.
Metal detector, yeah, for looking for coins in the beach.
Okay, coins. Okay, I think it's toys. Okay, yeah.
No. But it was kind of like the idea was like a Mattel was kind of like.
Okay.
Yeah, kind of like the idea. Yeah, but that was like early days. So anyway, I had my car. I sold it, made the molds to be able to do this product, and it didn't work out. So we put it in concession to try to get it sold, and it didn't sell. And so I went to my marketing teacher and I said, I want my money back. What do I do with this? Because it's not selling.
Yeah.
And he looks and he goes, what the hell is that? And anyway, I explained. He goes, oh, geez, I don't know what you can do. But you know what? You have to follow. The customers will show you the way.
Yeah.
So my suggestion to you is go find some show and get a stand and show it and see what the customers say. And customers, we did it. We managed for very little money to convince some guy to help these kids entrepreneurs trying to do something. And customers started going by. We put a little in the stand and in the booth with a little stand thing with a little palm tree and coins buried. That was so find your treasure or something like that. Sure. And then the parents with their kids would come because this was like a family kind of show thing event. So anyway, the kids are, hey, Dad, I want one of these. So the dad would say, how much is this? And I'd say something like $100. And they're like, $100? Are you insane? I'm not going to buy that. I'd rather get the kid a Nintendo or something. Yeah. So anyway, so I started doing what the professor said. I said, what do I do? What do you think? Is this? And he goes, you know what? I have a big theft problem in my factory, and people are, and these imported Garrett, the things you see in the airport where they see you're carrying a gun or something. Yeah. If you can make that for $100, I'll buy it in a heartbeat. So that night we went home, cut it up, and turned it into a handheld metal detector, and they started selling like that. Soon thereafter, we built a walk-through metal detector, and that was really good, and started selling and it had like a 90%, 95% margin on it.
Okay.
At half the price of the imports, which were something like $8,000. So anyway, for the first time, I got that sense of really the company take off. Yeah. We saturated the small Chilean market. And then there's a whole new story about how we tried to export and all that. But that's kind of how we got started. And then when we saturated the market is when we got into cameras, because we were actually putting cameras in front of the metal detector so that you could visually see where the person was carrying whatever metal he was trying to get out of the factory. So kind of like that Recall movie from Schwarzenegger from back. That was kind of the inspiration. So you wanted the camera to show you or the screen to show you where the person was carrying so that's how I got into cameras, and then built these track cameras, and it was a long process, but we ended up with with a solution that was used by retail. And the reason we picked retail, kind of going in the subject, was because we saw that was the most distributed industry on the planet.
Sure.
Where you had more, like all the brains, or the headquarters is where like the money, but then you gotta push management out to the stores. So that was kind of the original idea.
So you
and those were the way to teletransport yourself into the stores if you were at headquarters. That was the idea.
So retail was a great market. You got exposed to it. I now would assume you fell in love with it.
It's very tough. It's a very tough, basically, because, whatever you're trying to sell to retail, you basically, whatever it costs to provide that service, you have to multiply it by X number of stores. So it becomes very expensive and a very difficult decision. The bigger the retailer, the harder the decision to make. So that was a big challenge. So learned very early on that this was but what I did learn is that when you did get it right, then it would scale very quickly.
Right. So thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, getting that right product was amazing when you were in retail. And that's what always attracted me to it.
So now we got the foundation. Let's fast forward to today and talk to me about what you're seeing. I mean, you've seen a lot, you've done a lot. AI, retail is going through a transformation. It's kind of like happening slowly, but all of a sudden it's happened. Talk a little bit about what you're seeing with respects to robotics and AI and retail and maybe a little bit even about the implications.
Yeah. So I'd say, like, from a structural industry. So
yeah,
I went through so after selling that company in 2005, I took that money and started another company, which is called Scopics, which had the idea of doing the same thing we were doing with the track cameras, but with fixed cameras. Yeah. So we started putting that, and that's kind of where, in that process, of where we discovered the robot. But still, in hindsight, I used to think that we were playing chess. But I ultimately learned that in this company, this third company, trying to do this, basically the same idea. Yeah. It was more about surfing. So, so one thing is, you're trying to do the smartest thing like you would when you're playing chess. Sure. But in reality, what you're doing is you're surfing. So if the wave is not there, if you don't have the right equipment, if you're not trained, you're not fit, and which could be akin to having the team and the right technology and all that. Yeah. You're not going to be able to ride the wave. But if there's no wave, there's nothing to ride.
There's nothing to ride. Correct.
And I think what is happening today, which is really amazing, is that AI is starting to dominate, and so the technology is there's a lot of technology out there. Yeah. But it's not clear how you apply it. So, and just to go back, when I was in the 90s working on these track cameras that were all analog, I wanted the internet came out, and I was thinking, I want to get on the internet, right? But the thing is that to get on the internet, the companies that were actually being able to get on the internet were the ones that had structured data, right? So if you don't have structured data, machines can't understand the physical world if it's not structured. So I think I spent the next 20 something years trying to get to that structured in retail thing. Sure. And by doing it through different methods, fixed cameras, and which we tried, we spent a lot of millions of dollars and trying to make the fixed, but the fixed cameras were very difficult until a retailer, the big retailer, said, "Why don't you build me a robot?" And it was like, what? Build me a robot. Imagine all those cameras that you're putting on the shelves, you put them in one unit, and that unit can basically digitize the space. And that was like an aha moment. Yeah. This was in 2013. It was like, oh, wow, I've been wasting all this time. That was the solution. But then we tried to build a robot, and after 18 months and a lot of millions of dollars again invested in trying to do that effort, we realized that the technology was not there to capture the data, process it, and then shoot it to the cloud, and then process it in the cloud. Right. That only became viable in 2017 when we started Zippity. So basically the thinking there was let's do like James Cameron with his Avatar movie, where he made the script and said, to make this, the technology, the technology is not there to do this movie. So he put it in a drawer for 5 years, then pulled it out when it was right, and he made them one of the best grossing movies ever.
Yeah.
Which is fantastic. So anyway, we did the same thing. And in 2017, when the machine learning had caught up, when the technology had caught up to the idea, we founded Zippity, where with the idea that we would use these robots to digitize the space. And once you digitize the space, now you can do tons of stuff.
So tell me about some of that tons of stuff. And what I'm hearing is like, retail is going through this shift. As they go through this shift, I'm actually seeing it and talking to folks around like large language models and the like that. Oh, you want to take advantage of this? Well, is your data ready to do your fine tuning, to really have it locked into your business? Are you ready for that? And there's not too many nods in this case, right? And so I think what I'm hearing you saying, like, as we move into the space, there's going to be more and more the need to, as you're capturing an unstructured world, to put it into a structured format that can be consumed by these solutions to take advantage of it. So with all the different things you can do, what are some of the use cases come from?
Perfect. So when we started Zippity, the idea was, it was Instacart was starting to, they were like really taking off. And I said, e-commerce, that's the golden application. Sure. But so we got our, we had our solution, our robots started going out to the market with this, and retailers were like, they're saying, but dude, 2 out of every 100 of customers buys online. Why 2 or 3 out of every 100 buy online?
Yeah. No, it's
why should I care? Why should I care?
Yeah.
I'd rather focus on my 97 and, keep loyal customers coming to the store who, see a product, they get, they want to buy more and they end up walking out with a bigger basket. And that was like the business model, right?
Right.
So anyway, we saw there was no water there. We said that wrong solution for the wrong time. Again, going back to the wave, there's got to be a wave.
Got to be a wave. Absolutely.
Right. So there we kind of shifted to say, okay, let's use this structured data to do inventory, which is, there have been a lot of companies out there trying to do it. We have a really great tech team that has been able to actually make this work very good. Yeah. And at the beginning, there were like 3 or 4 companies out there that some of them had raised millions and millions of dollars, and we were just starting out. And at first, it was like my co-founder would say, "We'll never beat them at their game," and I said, "Yeah, but look at what they're doing. They're doing it wrong, and they got the fundamentals are wrong." And sure enough, they started to kind of falling to the side because they were not accurate, because they didn't understand retail, et cetera. And we started so we actually went after using that structured data to create what we call the digital twin. So today we're all about how do you put these robots in the store and create an exact replica in the cloud, which is structured data, which is what I was kind of dreaming we could do in the late 90s to get on the internet, right? But now, without that digital twin, you're really, really limited.
Yeah.
So
Okay. Like,
Yeah. So we believe today, our like strong belief is that if you do not digitize your stores, you're not going to be able to play effectively in the 21st century.
yeah, I
And
think,
I think that's starting to click with the retail industry.
yeah, I think if you go back to your professor, I think he said was like, hey, focus, listen to the customer, focus on the customer.
The customer shows you the way, and the
Customer shows you the way. Forget about, and there was something I was, doing like an audible the other day, and it was talking about, forget your competitors and worrying about how much they've raised or how big their teams are. Focus on good product for your customer.
Yeah.
And that will lead you in the right direction. So I know like there's all this opportunity and potential, but it's not going to be a crystal staircase, if you will. Can you tell me a little bit about what you see in front of, this space, the industry, from like, challenges, limitations, and maybe if you have a good remedy for those, what you think it would be? But what are some of the obstacles in front of, companies that are trying to take advantage of?
Yeah. So really good question. Like I was saying, we went after inventory.
Yeah.
But then the big problem here is what I said in the beginning. A retailer will take your solution,
yeah,
and then put it in the calculator, multiplied by the number of stores, and then the number becomes astronomical, which makes it very difficult for them to jump into this, right?
Yeah.
And so we see as our job to find, because the digital twin will let you do everything eventually, is how do we go discovering what new applications I can use for that digital twin? So we started with inventory, then moved on to working with giving visibility to suppliers, for example. That's another good application, which also helps fund the solution.
Yeah.
And then e-commerce, that's another huge one where we're actually working on with some partners, some of these drone delivery companies.
Okay. Yeah.
Kind of stream, because one of the big problems today in the e-commerce world, which is what we originally set out to do, was that the cost to get a product to your is high, and then you got a bunch of problems like substitutions that, and again, with the digital twin, what we've partnered with a lot of these last mile delivery companies, and we've been able to find that with the robot, you eliminate the substitutions.
Yeah.
You expand the assortment that they can offer, because the robot has now, that digital twin contains all the products in the store, and not just the high selling ones that would normally be put on a last mile delivery company's list. And then the other thing is that because we have every XYZ coordinate in the digital twin, you can direct the pickers or the shoppers to go and pick these products in a more efficient way.
Yeah.
And right, and we've been able to clock that just by knowing where the products are in the right route. You can reduce the shopping time by 50%, which is huge.
Sure. But
then that driver grabs those packages, and now he's got to go through traffic, spend gas, right, and all the time, and then and with like drone delivery is something that'll be cents.
Sure.
And so anyway, so we're working on how do you streamline that, and how do you get rid of all the costs in the supply chain to do that. And so one of the other projects that we have is we're trying to figure out how to get robots to pick the products off the shelf and then create those packages.
Yeah. And like the whole economics you're trying to support, you're trying to help through data and certainly other capabilities, helping to drive more sustainable economics for retailers.
Yeah, because today, like we've been over the last year, we've been talking to European retailers,
Sure.
and they're telling us it's too expensive when they don't even try to do e-commerce.
Right.
So it's very limited. So there's a huge opportunity there. And here, given the VC and companies like Instacart and all that, they've been able to somehow it's been subsidized and it's been possible. But if you don't have that, then it's almost impossible to do. And we think that by having this digitization of the store, now you enable a whole bunch of technologies, like a robot that picks you need to know where the product is to know where to go pick it. So if you start with that digital twin, now you get the robots to go there and then pick them. And then you have another robot that takes away the package. And then you have a company like Zipline with the drones that'll deliver it to the house and, drop it on your doorstep.
Yep. So I got the loaded question for you then in that regard is, so whenever people bring up AI and they bring up robotics, you hear immediately people start talking about they're going to kill it. It's going to kill us all on one end, or, it's going to drive utopia because now people are going to be liberated and free. Liberating and free to some sounds awesome. To others, it means I'm not going to have a job. What are the implications here for the continued advancement of AI and robotics on the world? Is it all, tide's going to lift all boats, or is there something else that may be less favorable that may happen here?
Yeah, so that's a good, and like you said, it's a loaded
question.
Yeah. So my son studied computer science, and he's like, Dad, that's not going to happen for another 100 years.
Yeah.
And whatever, right? So, but then you talk to, some of these VC. I was talking to one of these VCs that originally funded the ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And they're saying that these machines are gonna eliminate 85% of the workforce, which 5 years ago they were saying 50%. So,
right.
So there's but I also, when you look at technology, like, you think about the 18th century when they had to light the candles or the gas things to light the streets at night.
Yes.
So that worker couldn't, once electricity came along, that job disappeared, but then you got a whole bunch of other. So right. I think humans will continue to evolve. I think they'll figure it out.
Yep.
I think humans, the God-given talent for humans is to be able to invent tools that make things better.
Right.
So I'm an optimist in that sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, the only thing is, how fast does that occur?
Sure.
But for example, our robots, like we put those in retail. We have hundreds of stores with robots inside. Yeah. And in every single one, they love Zippy, or they give them another name. And it's because they really make their jobs easier. They become more productive. They because at the end of the day, you get paid according to what value you deliver. So if this structured data, these digital twins give you information to better do your job, and you become, we have one retailer that, what if he could do 2 tasks in an hour, now he can do 8.
Right.
Just by taking this information and kind of shifting the procedures a little bit.
Yeah.
And kind of adapting them to this new technology, this new information that's available. It becomes really you walk into the store. I walk in with my Zippity logo on, and they're like, "Oh, you're from Zippity. Great to meet you. This great product, blah blah blah." Yeah. So you see that the reaction of humans is one of, if it's, if the product is helping the humanity recognizes it. And I think in general, if entrepreneurs and people that are inventing the future, build it so that it helps, because you can always build stuff like the atomic bomb or something.
Sure. Yeah, but
but you having been working, especially with cameras, which, in the early days, in the 90s and the 2000s, it was all about the creepy factor of these cameras.
Right.
But you can always design around that. You design so it doesn't cause those negative effects.
I like how you're saying that, associates within the stores are anthropomorphizing the robot, giving it a name, and really, I would imagine having it be like a colleague at the job. And we won't name any names here, but I do recall hearing directly, I think, from one of your customers, something around, because of the insights that are produced by your technology, it actually led to more staff being required in order to knock down the items, the new opportunities that were in front of them, and it was still a net massive ROI.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
I think it's, when you start to expose it, provide visibility to things that otherwise we have put blinders onto or we miss, that gives us, information is everything, right? Whether it's a negotiation or, in most instances in life, and this is no different, right? You're giving retailers more insight, and thus,
right. So one way I've been pitching this lately is like, so I have this one customer that's got over 2,000 stores.
Yeah.
And so I go, how many employees are your average store? And they say 150. Okay. So imagine that of the 150, the 150th, you could replace it. You could hire somebody that was an expert communicator, motivator, would help everybody work better, and made everybody 30 to 50% more efficient, which is kind of the numbers that we're seeing.
Yeah.
Would you hire them? Would you hire that one person of the 150 to be part of the team? And they say,
of course,
every day of the week.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so now imagine that one person is not a person. You switch the meat and bones person for a metal one.
Yeah, right.
Does that change the equation? And they're like, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
so,
and I'm going to get consistency.
And then that also helps the idea that the calculator idea that you put this in and then multiply it by the number of stores.
Right.
Really, that's not how you have to think about it. You have to think about, you're making everybody more efficient by putting this one element in, which costs the same as in one FTE here in the US.
Right. So so in that regard, as you, basically having the conversation, hey, if you could have this super associate, would you do it? And it's like, yeah, every day of the week. That's such a drive. That's driving like a collaboration. How do you think retailers could do more or a better job of working with, and collaborating with companies like yours out there? I see a lot of it going on, but is there an opportunity still to really pull you in for your thought leadership and what you could actually end up delivering for?
Yeah. So one way I look at it is that, like, it's like, what's your core competency, right? When you look at a core competency of a retailer, their job is it's more of a, right now, we want to curate the best products for a customer.
Yeah.
We want to figure out what our message is. We want to buy the best possible products. We want to try to buy them, mark them up as much as makes sense or as possible. And that's their business, right?
Right.
And our business is to sit back and think about how the world is going to be in 50 years and come up with a formula in the future, and then kind of reverse engineer it to today, and then figure out what your roadmap is. That's a totally different, proposition or core competency, right?
Yeah.
So when we partner with customers, we look at this, and what I tell them, I say, hey, we're here to go on a journey with you where you guys know your business, you know your culture, you know what your problems are way better than we do. But we know a lot about robots and image recognition and AI and what we can do with this. And we're always thinking about, where this is going. How are we going to invent the new thing? How are we going to reinvent? How are we going to kill our existing products with the new products and all that kind of stuff, which is a completely different business. So I see this as a partnership.
Yep.
And we don't consider our good customers are the ones that consider us partners and not vendors, because we're not there to sell them a technology. We're there to invent the future together.
Right.
And that's the last week when I was in Japan, as we were talking before, I had the opportunity, the owner of one of the largest DIYs in Japan met with us for dinner. And this is exactly what he wanted. He wanted to understand how we saw this collaboration. And that's exactly what I told him.
Yeah.
And he was thrilled.
Well, I heard an executive one time say, the path I like to take my companies I work with on is, maybe they'll start off as a vendor, make them a supplier, then they become a partner with us, and then ultimately they're a friend, right?
Exactly. And then you spend more time with them than you do with any of other friends.
For sure.
So they really do become your friends.
For sure.
So real life, yeah.
Yeah. The other thing that I think I've observed, in given the type of technology you're dealing with, and certainly the world that I'm in, is people always talk about, people, process, and technology. And I think for a lot of, certainly what we do is technology is going to work. The technology is going to do its thing. It's going to give you the results that we tell you it's going to give you. The most important thing ends up being managing the points of view of the people, right? Like, what is this going to be the implications to me in my job? And also, like, how do you fit in, how the overall solution works into the way that we work, right? Our processes and stuff. Do you see it the same way? Is there no, Shawn, it's always the tech, it's broken and I have to fix it? Or is it, the people and the processes, those are the things that need to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We think, and then kind of what we're seeing with our customers, especially the bigger ones, the ones that have a budget to, develop and do their own stuff, is that once they get the gist of it, now they start inventing their own. And then if they're doing it on their apps, it's amazing. We're just like observing how they're taking this technology and saying, hey, now that we can see, we have the we're the out of stock and we can see the overhead, and they start to come up with really creative ways and things that, like, hey, we can detect stuff that was lost in the store. Sure. And a lot of these ideas come from them, and we have to pick them up, and they'll come to us and say, hey, you know what? We'd like to do this. And then, why would you want to do that? And they explain. They say, hey, this, if you think about it, we have this, and this is what we're trying to do.
Right.
And do you know how many millions of hours we spend, hundreds of millions of dollars we spend on going to physically visit the stores? If you guys could solve this problem by just help us do this. So we go to our tech and go to our teams and say, okay, how do we get this done? How do we give the customer this information from the digital twin in this way so that they can consume it in their apps? And a lot of times we also have our own apps that we use to learn, because one of the biggest challenges that we've had is that, sometimes you say, hey, we're going to get a robot, we're going to get all this data, and we're put that data available but if they don't know, if they've never had that data, they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
So it's also our job to kind of figure out, show them a lot of times that, hey, this is how you use the data. And like I said, then they jump on. When they get it, then they start to do other stuff, and then they run with it. And and we've done our job.
In that regard, when they're ideating on these different solutions, Brand had a question asking, are retailers leveraging this type of technology to help with risk mitigation? Is that how it's capturing products in places they shouldn't be? I guess more so like, do you see any application for loss prevention?
Yeah, that's a tough one. And again, I told you my career started 13 years in loss prevention. So the thing is that in loss prevention, if the deterrent, what I learned in loss prevention is 10% of the people will never steal, 10% will always, and then 80% will steal whether if they think they can get away with it.
Yeah.
So it's a lot about deterrence, right? But what I see that the major problem here is that legislation doesn't deter. So what you're seeing today is that people will go into a store and just steal it. The other day I saw some guys, they went in, stole, the guards weren't doing anything. They're just watching. I think it was a Nordstrom or something.
Yeah.
And then the guy was leaving, and then just out of spite, he sprays the security guard with some bear repellent, just because and then they walk out of the place. So I think that's a little bit more of a complex problem because you can monitor, you can identify, you can do all that you want with technology, but if there's no deterrent, then it's not going to work. So I think that particular problem has more of a legal society.
Yeah. So if we could close out on probably, I'd like to put your future hat on and give me a little bit about, the future of robotics and AI in retail, kind of what's coming. If you were to put on your future vision, what's coming, what you would get excited for. Don't give up any of your IP, but tell us something cool that you see happening.
Yeah. So what I think is that in the future, so it's all about core competency. What do you do best, right?
Yeah.
And like if you're in a DIY environment or like a mall, it's about talking to the customers and selling and curating and all that stuff, right? So I think all the processes that go behind the scene have the things that enable the product to be available on the shelf. I think all that's got to be automated. I think we're going through a big, and you see that in warehouses. You see a lot more automation occurring. I think that automation will inevitably has to come to the store where the people that are in the store are there to do things that machines can't do.
Right.
And again, that's where humans add value.
Right.
And they don't necessarily add value by picking up a box in the back end and then bringing it over forward without any information. So I think we're on a very straight path to having the process, the operations automated as much as they can, and then those employees, those should be there helping customers and making more focused on the experience and how to make that trip to the store more compelling. And I think the opportunity to automate all those processes that can be replaced by machines is was gonna make everybody make more money, have a better job.
Yeah. I think like automation will. Yeah, I too believe that automation will ultimately kind of reduce the friction for me, like the customer. I mean, fact is we all want to engage with retailers and get in and get out as quickly as possible, right? There's one thing that we all concern ourselves, and that's a non-replenishable thing of time. We can't get it back once you spend it.
That's the only thing you can't get back. Exactly.
Can't get it back. And, same thing goes for associates too. Automation will help make their jobs easier, more enjoyable, more productive,
and more valuable because that's what that's
right.
And then further into the future, I see a lot of these stores going like that AR, a VR kind of
sure.
virtual.
Yeah.
I definitely see that happening, and where you're still going to have humans interacting, but maybe not physically.
Right.
So I think there's a huge opportunity there. Again, that's another one where the wave is not quite there yet. I actually, before I started Zippity, I spent like 2 years trying to, when it looked like the VR thing was going to take off, but then it didn't. So there was no wave at all, and there still isn't. It's a slightly bigger, but it's not enough to surf on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was when I was in grad school, I too was maybe a little bit ahead. I had back in 01 was time frame, and I put together a augmented reality startup and it was called ART Square, or Augmented Reality Technology Tours, where you would put on some goggles and walk around historic sites, and digital images would be rendered in front of you, whether it be a battleship or the Roman Colosseum. And my professor was like, do you know how much that content's going to cost? It's not like a movie theater, Shawn. People aren't going to be able to distribute this across the globe. It's one site. And it was before Pokemon Go or any of those sorts of things. And I don't know if we're quite yet there, but it's coming.
Yeah, but what I do know, so humans are essentially inventors of tools, right? Tools. Yeah. That's what they do. Humans build tools to do things. And I think the AR VR piece is the best tool that humans have invented for two things: teletransportation and getting across a message. So I think like advertising in VR will be just blow your mind.
Yeah, technology I'm super excited about for sure.
Yeah, but not there yet.
Not there.
We'll see what happens with these Apple. Oh
yeah, the Vision Pros.
See if that kind of helps thing. But it's a very exciting future, but not there yet. The wave is not there. We have to look out for that wave.
Awesome. Well, Luis, this has been a great conversation. Well, Luis, has this been a great conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe I can be talking about this stuff all day.
All day. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me on what was the inaugural, my first conversation on retail, where we're going to be reinventing retail here, hopefully monthly, with leaders like yourself across both technology and retail industry proper and academia. I'm thankful for you. Thank you for joining us today. And
so I always like to be the first, and so it's a great honor. Thanks so much for having me.